Welcome back to In Ohio Country today, and joining me now, Bruce Clevenger. He's one of the speakers here at the Farm Forum, sponsored by our friends at Apple Farm Service and Brookside Labs. Bruce, nice to see you again.
Good to see you too, sir.
You know, last time we hooked up in Defiance County, actually, at the infancy, if you will, of the H2 Ohio program. So before we get started about what your topic is here today, why not give us a little bit of update about what's happening in the old Great Black Swamp area?
Well, production, of course, coming off of a year of 2024, yields are a little off from the last couple of years. But the Great Black Swamp, is a great breadbasket of production for livestock and crops, everything from forages to our livestock industry, dairy, swine, poultry. It's a great place to have a career and engage in agriculture. I love the part about research and education, how those two marry together. In fact, what can we learn from research and to improve the practices? There's so many things that farmers are doing well, but at the same time, what don't we know today that we need to know that can kind of move the needle for economics, but also the environmental responsibility that we have?
You know, when we met with you last, they were talking about some of the various types of capture devices of being able to control the runoff from the fields. Can you give us an update on that, the success of that program? Because we're seeing a lot of positivity with the H2 Ohio program, especially in that Maumee watershed, which you're a part of, and that western Lake Erie Basin.
Well, farm drainage continues to be an important infrastructure in production agriculture, especially in the Maumee River Basin. And so as we are responsibly removing excess water off the field, we don't want to overdrain the land. And at the same time, when we do overdrain and move water away, we're moving soluble nutrients that potentially have downstream and lake effects that are not wanted by anybody in agriculture. There's no desire to do that. But at the same time, the technology that's available with buffers, with mediums that filter and also just control the volume of water off the field, it's safe to say that these practices, especially in drainage water management, if we can control 40 to 60% reduce the amount of water that's leaving the field, we can directly affect the 40 to 60% reduction of soluble nutrients that are also leaving that field as well. So great practices to adopt. Actually, they're incentivized, they're low cost, they fit right into retrofit or when we put in a new drainage system from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those areas that a lot of people have been concentrating on. And, of course, I failed to mention as part of your title, part of the Ohio State University Extension. And you're wearing a lot of different hats besides talking about just farm drainage and water issues up there. So talk a little bit about your responsibilities now as an extension agent from Defiance County.
Well, as I transitioned from that position to a field specialist position a couple years ago, my ties are still to Defiance County. I serve now across the state of Ohio as a field specialist in farm management. Now, I still get the chance to talk about economics of farm drainage, the values of environmental responsibility and water quality, soil quality. Those are great aspects because you don't have to decouple the economic advantages from the production advantages. You don't have to decouple the environmental advantages from the production and the economic advantages. That's where these programs and plans are designed to do, is to make sure that the best management practices are best in the sense that they are productive, at the same time economic and environmentally responsible. And that's the fun part of it. And right now in my current role, it's fun to work in the area of farm business analysis and record keeping and accounting, because right now our margins are tight in the 2024 production year as well as what we would forecast in 2025. Now more than ever, we need to lean on the basics of the skills of being a farm manager to make sure that we are able to survive a downturn and be successful in years to come.
You know, we've talked about it before about as far as production agriculture here in the Buckeye State is more than just producing for our residents here in Ohio. It's a global economy now, and our farmers have to look at it not only from the standpoint of production, but also economics.
Very much so. And even within the United States, for example, right now, there's a fair amount of our 2024 corn and soybean commodities that are being drawn. Our basis is really strong right now, meaning our processors and users of our commodities that were grown in 2024, they need our grain right now. Even though the futures price is low, basis has strengthened and says they want that product to be drawn out of storage because it's needed not only in Ohio but also across the eastern seaboard. You talk about the Carolinas needing corn and beans for animal agriculture down there. There's a really a demand, and I was mentioning earlier today that China is back in the buying position. Right now for soybeans, they made it back into the top 6 of export market destinations just in this last WASDE report, and so it's exciting to see how this information is almost day to day, and so even though we have kind of lost some market share in the world economy, there are other markets that are opening up. Would you think that India is a significant buyer of corn and soybeans? Well, India has a tremendous amount of agriculture, and they have come to the table. Guatemala, other places around the world that we just need to recognize that when one door we may think close, there may be others that open.
Well, let's talk about a couple that are already open and one that is soon to be open. One of our sponsors on our TV show not too far away from you, Poet in Lipsick, and of course the Louis Dreyfus soybean crushing facility in Upper Sandusky. Now, how will those two facilities impact our producers there in Northwest Ohio?
Well, the ethanol existing facility like at Poet in Lipsick is an ongoing reason we have a strong basis seasonally or throughout the year. It's a great point for not only our local county elevators to deliver, but also directly for our producers to deliver as well. With the new processing capacity with Louis Dreyfus facility crushing and producing not just meal, but oil. Oil is probably the component now that has the excitement about it. Meal is kind of the byproduct to the oil side, and so oil has some great opportunity for where that goes in the world and domestic use. And so with the new capacity in soybean crush, the estimates that I heard that with that online, we may be able to process as much as 80% of the Ohio soybean production right within the state of Ohio, you cannot disagree that that's going to help with basis and local price point opportunities for elevators and farmers alike.
Bruce, before we let you go, I want to talk a little bit about your appearance here today at the Farm Forum, thanks to our friends at Brookside Labs and, of course, one of our main sponsors, Apple Farm Service. Your topic today is pretty much what we talked about, but anything that we missed that you were speaking about today?
Well, I think getting back to the basics of really managing that budget, crop budget, cost of production in 2025 is going to be essential. I think there's some farms that are going to be able to withstand this storm. I think there's some farms that are going to be a little more vulnerable. And so we talk about what we call the working capital. Working capital is how much cash do we have on hand to do the work that's necessary. And working capital can be cash reserves or cash that we borrow as far as an operating loan. And so there may be some stress and strain on how much working capital does a farm have, as well as what are my abilities to borrow money to operate. And so with interest rates coming down a tick more, just as of yesterday, what happens with the federal rate? What does that look like at the retail level of that interest rate? That's not always a direct correlation, but it's certainly telling us that the U.S. economy is strong. And I think the U.S. ag economy is going to go through not just 2025, but another year or so of some stress. And that stress is not applied to everybody in the industry. And so some can withstand a storm a little bit better, and others may have some trouble ahead.
This is one of the reasons why I played that last interview that we did with him a couple of years ago several times, because this guy is a wealth of knowledge right here. Bruce Clevenger has been our guest from The Ohio State University Extension. Bruce, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We'll be back with more In Ohio Country today right after this.